Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For today's video, I have a review and tutorial as well as some swatches on the new Physicians Formula Ultimate Murumuru Butter Collection. I'm so excited about this. I've been playing around with it for the past week or so. I did purchase this myself on the Physicians Formula website. So this little guy right here has every single item from the Physicians Formula Butter line, which if you haven't tried out the butter bronzer, you definitely should. That to me is just like the best bronzer I have ever tried. I love the shade, I love the formula. The scent is just so nice and like tropical. So I was definitely excited to play around with this. So starting off with the packaging, it does come in a hard pink plastic case, so it does feel a little bulky, a little clunky. The box is magnetized, so overall it does feel pretty sturdy, even though it is a little on the bulky side. But I mean, you do get a ton of product in here, so I honestly don't know how else they could have fit so much product into one container, into one palette. So I guess I can see why they went for something like this. So this is pretty much an all-in-one makeup item. You can get a really nice either glam look with this palette, or you can do something more on the natural side. I think this would make a really nice gift for someone who maybe is just getting into makeup or doesn't have a ton of makeup already in their collection, because you do get pretty much everything that you need to complete a look. I personally would have loved receiving this as a gift as a teenager, or even when I was like in my 20s starting to get into makeup. So when you open it up, you get, I'm gonna try not to drop this, but you get 8 butter bronzers and 24 eyeshadows. I have been really into mixing like 2 or 3 different bronzer shades. I mean, they are all there, so why not? Some of these I use more to sculpt out the face, and then other warmer, more shimmery shades I use to warm up my skin. As far as the formula goes, I think they are pretty much identical to the single bronzers. The only difference that I found is that these bronzers do have a little more kick up when you put your brush in there, but I think that's just because of the way they're pressed in the pan. So overall, I really love the shade selection of these bronzers. I think there's something in here for everyone, from the fairest to the deepest of skin tones. So I've really been into these bronzers. I'm gonna keep reaching for them. Moving on to the eyeshadows, you do get 24 eyeshadows in here, and you get a nice mix of mattes, some shimmers, some more glittery shades. You get a nice variety of deeper as well as some more transition shades in here. So I think this is a really well-rounded eyeshadow collection. There are a few misses in here, particularly with the more shimmery, chunky, glittery shades. But other than that, everything else worked really well. The mattes did blend out really nice and easily. They were super buttery and smooth. Moving right along, you have the butter highlighters and the butter blushes. I was actually pleasantly surprised with the blushes in particular, because I had always heard sort of mixed reviews on these blushes. I remember hearing that they just weren't very pigmented, but I actually think that they are. I don't know if they changed the formula along the years. I was very pleasantly surprised with the pigmentation, the blendability. You have a really nice shade selection. The only thing to me is that it is, in my opinion, missing more of a neutral blush shade. Everything in here on me translates either super pinky or super peachy. I can get away with using blushes like this depending on like the eye look that I'm going for, but I personally would have preferred something more on the neutral side. Other than that, I really like the formula. I like how you can really mix and match these. They are super buttery and creamy. They're nice and pigmented. I really like how there's a nice mix of more shimmery shades and then some more, again, not matte, because I feel like nothing in this palette is completely matte. Everything has more of a satiny finish to it, which I personally really like. As for the highlighters, I also really enjoyed these. I hadn't really seen too many reviews on these. All I knew was that they were more of like a creamy, bouncy type of highlighter, almost like the ColourPop Super Shock highlighters. These to me feel even creamier than that. They have like a creamy sort of texture to them. They almost feel wet, but they do dry down to more of a powder kind of highlighter. I can get away with using pretty much 3, maybe 4 out of the 7 highlighter shades. The very first one at the top right here, which is called Curl, that one is just too light on me. I think it's just too frosty. And then this shade right here, which is like a straight up gold highlighter, this is in the shade Champagne. I can kind of get away with using this, but it does tend to look just a little too gold on me. And then finally, at the very bottom of the collection, you have the Butter Lip Creams and a mirror. I can't believe it took me so long to try the Butter Lip Creams. I have been really into these lately. I like how they're kind of a fusion between a lip balm and a lip gloss. They do have some nice pigment to them, but they're not the most opaque lipsticks. You can kind of build them up, maybe if you use something like a lip brush, but I just prefer to apply them with my finger, and I just get the best application that way. I did try out a couple shades with a lip brush, but they just looked a little streaky, just not very smooth on the lips. I personally really love the shade Soaking Up the Sun, which is that top corner shade. That's the most neutral, more everyday type of lip shade. And then the deepest shade, which is called Nights in Rio, that one I actually really like. It doesn't translate as dark on the lips as it looks in the pan. So that's this one right here. And then here is Soaking Up the Sun. So Soaking Up the Sun and Nights in Rio. And then of course you do get a mirror, which is at the very bottom of the palette. I just don't really see myself reaching for this, especially not on an everyday basis. I always use my desktop mirror, so I don't really see the need for something like this, but I guess it could come in handy if you're gonna travel with this. So that is it for my little review on this Ultimate Butter collection. Now let's just jump right into the tutorial. So I'm gonna start off with the shade, this one down here. This is called Beach Beige, and I'm gonna apply that right into the crease using a Morphe JH32 brush, which is a fluffy blending brush. And I really like how these lighter matte shades blend out. They just don't take a lot of effort. And they're also really nice and pigmented as well. So I'm just gonna do kind of an everyday look, but with a little bit of a shimmer on the lids, which is what I always do for an everyday look. I just can't help myself. This is such a perfect transition shade. It's not too cool toned. I guess it's more on the neutral side. So it works really well paired with any of the other like shimmery shades. And then using that same brush, I'm gonna take this darker and a warmer shade right here. This is called Sand Dunes. So this one I'm not bringing up quite as high. I'm just keeping it a little bit lower than that first shade. I'm also bringing it right onto the outer corners. And then on a Morphe JH33 brush, I'm gonna dip into this warm brick orangey shade, which is called Heat Wave. This is one of my favorite eyeshadows in the entire eyeshadow collection. I'm gonna pack that right onto the outer corner and then start bringing it into the crease. I still can't believe it took me so freaking long to try out the Butter eyeshadows. I had always wanted to try out the palettes that they released, and I just never got around to it. And then taking that Morphe JH32 brush, I'm just gonna lightly buff around the edges. For the lid shade, I'm gonna apply this shade right here, which is a coppery, shimmery shade. This is called Island Hopping. I mean, look at how that shade just glides onto the lids. This is one of the more shimmery shades that even if you apply a couple of layers on the lid, it just doesn't look chunky like some of the other more shimmery shades. So this is definitely one of my favorite shimmers in the palette. I'm just gonna take that Morphe JH33 brush and kind of pat around the outer edges. And then I'm taking that fluffy brush very lightly. I'm also gonna add this darkest brown shade right here, which is called Coco Loco. And I'm gonna take this shade on a Delium Tools 714 brush. It's just a flat shader brush. I'm not winging it out or anything, I just wanna add a little more depth. And I'm gonna finish up the lower lash line. I'm just gonna take a mixture of those two lighter matte shades. And then with that same brush, I'm gonna take that matte orangey shade, and I'm also running that along the lower lash line, but just a little bit closer. Also kind of connecting it to the outer corner. And then I think I'm gonna highlight the inner corners with this shade right here. This is called Moonlight Beige. I'm also gonna add a tiny bit right under the brow. I've been mixing two mascaras. This is the Flower Beauty Warrior Princess Mascara. I applied this one first, and then just because this one can get a little bit clumpy, I like going over top of that with the Lancome Monsieur Big Mascara. This one does a really nice job at separating the lashes, so that's why I've been combining these two. I also went ahead and tightlined with the Lottie London AM to PM eyeliner in the shade Mocha, which is a deep matte brown. And then I also applied the NYX Slide On Glide On eye pencil in the shade Golden Bronze to the waterline. For blush, like I said, I have been mixing 2, even 3 different bronzer shades because, I mean, they are there for me to use. So I'm actually gonna start off with the shade Sunset Bronzer, which is this warm shimmery shade. I'm gonna apply that all over to warm up the skin because I feel like this foundation shade is looking a little bit too light for me right now. So I'm just gonna apply that with this Real Techniques Multitask Face Brush. And then I think I'm gonna mix the shade Bronzer and Deep Bronzer just to sculpt out the face. I'm gonna focus this more in the hollows of the cheeks. I'm gonna add some right here along the jawline. Just a tiny bit. Moving on to blush, I'm gonna mix a couple of shades. I'm gonna take Copacabana, which is this shade right here, and I'm gonna mix a little bit of Natural Glow, which is that top corner shade. Even though I feel like I don't need to apply any highlighter because these blushes are so glowy, I'm still gonna go in with the shade Rose Gold, which is this one right here. So I'm gonna apply this with my finger. Look at that. I might go back in with a brush just to try to diffuse it, but I have tried applying them with a brush and it just doesn't, it's like it just ends up sitting on top of the skin in kind of a weird way. So I've been applying these with my finger instead. A little bit to the Cupid's bow, down the bridge of the nose, a little bit above the brow as well. And then I think I'm gonna take a little bit of the shade Champagne, which is this like straight up gold highlighter shade down here. I'm gonna take a tiny bit of that and just go right over top. Almost applied too much. Whoa, okay, okay. Yeah, you do have to be pretty careful with these, especially if you're going in with your finger. They get really intense really quick, so keep that in mind. And I think I'm gonna take some of that Champagne shade and apply it on the inner corners. Whoa. Yeah, that's intense. Okay, finally for lips, I'm gonna mix a couple of shades. I'm gonna start off with the shade Nights in Rio, which is the deepest shade in the collection. And then I'm gonna top that with Soaking Up the Sun, which is the lightest one. So I do prefer applying these with my finger. You can apply these with a lip brush, but I just feel like they look smoother when you apply them with your finger. And then here is Soaking Up the Sun. So my final thoughts on this collection, I think this is worth the $39.99, especially considering that you get so much product in this little box and everything is already a permanent part of the butter line. So if you ever run out of anything that you liked in here, you can always go out and purchase it individually. I can see myself traveling with this, but maybe just if I'm going somewhere for the weekend. Sometimes my husband and I go to my mother-in-law's house and we stay there for a night or two. So this, I can really see myself bringing with me for that, just because you get everything that you need for a full face in here. But I could see this getting a little too bulky to travel in like an airplane, just because of the plastic case. I don't know if this would hold up in your suitcase. But other than that, this is a really nice holiday collection. Even though the packaging is a little bulky, I feel like the products in here make up for that. So I definitely recommend this. And if you have been wanting to try this, I would say go for it. Just keep in mind that you do get a ton of product in here that you might not be able to use up before it expires because there is so much makeup to get through. So that completes this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this review and tutorial. Let me know what you want to see next in the comments down below. Make sure to give this video a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more of my videos. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.